Close. All right, there it is. Just share that. Almost done, people. Almost done. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Juan Ying Layth, bienvenidos a todos. People, Pakhair, Ragle, Khushamadid, and Swagatam, Swagatam. Alright, so what is going on, people? What is happening? What is happening? Alright. Talk to me, people. Look at that. Everybody, those of you tuning in, you know the drill, people. You know the drill. Click like, click share. Spread the love, the fasad and the fitan. Alright, so Abu Unaysa, Riz, Ubaid, Ahlan wa sahlan bikum, Ahlan wa sahlan. Abu Mu'adh, वाह आप भी जिंदा हैं. Alright, so Amir, how you doing, man? Dawood, people, Dawood, I take it it's not Dawood Ibrahim from the underworld. Right, so what is going on? New Zealand on board. New Zealand is rocking right now, people. Jacinda has killed it. She's done it, people. She has slated the whole thing. She's white. She's a game changer for leadership. You know, the interesting thing is, if prior to, let's say, prior to the shooting, a week before, even days before, if anybody had asked that who is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, nobody would have a clue. They would be like, New Zealand, their Prime Minister. But I have to say, she is, she's definitely, and she's amazing, but you know what it is? She's very confident and secure about herself, which isn't that common, surprisingly, in leaders. So leaders are usually trying to seek validation from other leaders worldwide, but she's very secure about herself. She doesn't need that kind of validation, that she's managed to stand up the way she has. And I think everybody is just, right now, she's probably the world's most famous leader right now. Everybody is totally just enamored by her leadership skills. So I think that's awesome. That said, people, I would like to say, right, so I would like to say about Jacinda. First of all, it's her name just sounds so desi, doesn't it? It's like when I first heard it, I was like, what? Her name's what? Jacinda. Sasriya Akal ji, Sasriya Akal, Jacinda ji. It sounds like the surname's going to be Kaur. Jacinda Kaur. So, yeah, I wanted to say that, so you've got whereas most of the world are totally in awe of her leadership skills. Then you've got these two contingents running parallel, Muslim contingents either side. You've got on one hand, right, you've got a bunch of Muslims now trying to say, right, mashallah, 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 she is about to embrace Islam. Mashallah, mashallah. Now, Sister Jacinda just has to say the Shahada. Mashallah, mashallah. Right, for God's sake, hold your horses, mate. Hold your horses. Calm down. Okay, she's got good manners. She's represented herself as a great leader, and she wore a hijab or put a dupatta on her head. Right, but just calm down. I mean, and some guys, they're giving her da'wah. That poor lady's probably thinking, for God's sake, these guys just don't get it, do they? If any more people start giving her da'wah, she'll probably join the far right. We've got to understand that just because somebody's a good human being, it doesn't mean that you start trying to convert them to Islam. Oh, just say the Shahada, join the crew. This obsession that some Muslims have in wishing to convert everyone, they really need to grow up. We've got enough Muslims, seriously. What is it, like 1.8 billion or something, I mean, in the world? And what is the point anyway? All we do is we bring people on and we scare a bunch of, like 50 times more we scare off. And the remaining majority we declare deviants. And there's like 10 left in the world who are upon the haqq. Haqq. On the haqq. What is the point of this kind of... Yeah, so you've got that contingent running on one side, and on the other side, I've seen some Hizb ut-Tahrir making some statements. Hizb ut-Tahrir are like they're like the kind of, I don't know, the psych ward contingent of the Muslim Ummah. They're like the bachare with the... You know, like they've got some serious psychosis, but the Muslim Ummah seems to still have them along. Like, don't worry, just keep taking these antipsychotics, and you'll be okay. And their psychosis has turned into a kind of dementia, so they keep thinking that we're in some caliphate, some Abbasid caliphate from, I don't know, like 900 years ago. So they keep forgetting, and they think, oh, Al-Ma'moon, Al-Musta'een Billah, let's Al-Nasir Billah. So I saw some post by some of these HT, and they're on the other end, that people, you know, it doesn't matter, all these Muslims are praising Jacinda Ardern, and at the end of the day, she's from the kuffar, the kuf system, you know, the kuf. She's from the kuf system, the kuf in it, the kuffar in it, you know, the kufdem. So their posts were like, brothers and sisters, we have to remember that this is not the Sharia, you know, the Sharia, this is Jacinda Ardern with the modern new world order. This is the Kuf system. So beware, oh, sorry, wrong, sorry, we're Muslims today. Is that can be the crescent and the star. Whoa! Whoa. So, yeah, so you read this stuff and you think, why do we have to disproportionately get like as Muslims, get the mentally retarded in our share? Like, why can't we have just like normal people have like a certain percentage only that are mentally retarded? Why do we have to have a disproportionate? That's like a handicap challenge. That's not fair. That's ya Allah, this ain't fair. How are we supposed to? How is this deen supposed to represent if we're disproportionately? We've got like the mentally retarded on our side in a huge disproportionate measure. That's just not on. And the worst part is they think they're really intelligent. I got genius idea. I know. I'll call them to Islam. Oh my God. Oh my God. So what else is going on in world news, people? What else is going on? There's I read somewhere in Netherlands, I think it was in Netherlands, I read it on social media, it was a newspaper, saying that they're going to introduce a law to say that for naturalization, so when you take up residency and you become naturalized, you take up citizenship, that you must shake hands. So that's the handshake. Not that handshake, but the citizenship handshake is mandatory. So if you decline the handshake, they will decline your naturalization. So they will. So basically, no passport. You know this one. You must shake the hand. You know, shake the hand. You must shake the hand. You know this. That's what they ought to do. I mean, I don't know what this craze is, by the way, with Muslims. Like, we're not allowed, some Muslims, sorry. We're not allowed to shake hands, and we're not allowed to shake hands. What they ought to do is go shake their hands and just do that one, that. And then go, welcome. You welcome me to the Netherlands. Right, so there is nothing, you know, look, there is nothing in the Quran or Sunnah that states shaking hands with the opposite gender is haram. Okay, nothing. La shay. Okay, as surprising as that may sound, there is nothing. Not one sahih, sarih hadith, right, from the Sunnah that can stand, that cannot be criticized, not one. And there's nothing in the Quran. In fact, there's arguably hadith which demonstrate the contrary. There's hadith of which, and I've got a whole segment on this on YouTube where I'm speaking about, I've covered it previously in depth. And I go through the few hadith that they do provide, people who back that argument, and how all of them are clearly weak. There isn't anything. And the statements and the actions of people like Abu Bakr radiallahu an, Umar radiallahu, that they were taking bay'ah, that they were shaking hands with the opposite gender and things like this. So people, there is culture, I accept there's Muslim culture, but there's nothing, I don't think people need to freak out. You know, if somebody's going to shake your hand, just shake the goddamn hand. It's not, I'm not saying take the hand and do something with it. You, naughty, you haramis. I'm saying that you just shake the hand, is, you know, like a decent human being. Just shake the hand. Right, so you don't need to kind of do anything with the hand, like the person's not noticing. And then he's like, huh? Where did my hand just go? Huh? It's like, and then after a while, they're like, you're like wiping, you got the hand coming down. And he's trying to naturalize some more citizens. And you've got a hand coming down like this. Right, so I think there's nothing, people need to stop freaking out over stuff that is not stuff to freak out over. Stop creating a scene. Stop being drama queens. Right? So they could just shake the goddamn hand. There's nothing to it. Okay? You don't get pregnant by shaking hands. So yeah, that's interesting. What else is going down, people? This law is also wrong. They claim the handshake of secularism and custom to shake hands upon agreement to meet selective approach to the meaning of secularism. It is, look, I think if we can't shake hands, we can just hug them instead. Of course. Don't shake hands, hug them. Say, yaar, jadoo ki jappi. Say, come here, yaar. Oh, yaar, Islam ko gale laga lo, yaar. That's what they ought to do. That would be like, can you imagine that? Whoever he is, let's say some minister, whoever he is, he's trying to shake hands and there's some woman, niqabi, whatever, and he's like, and she's like, Gale lag ja zalim. And she's like, I tell you, they'll probably change the law the next day. He'll probably be like, oh my God, this is it. These are I see my life flashing right before my eyes. So, yeah, they are a reaction, these laws. I know they are a reaction because some people are just fed up. But we have to understand, you know, I think, look, you know what it is? I think we are too often the minority, so we don't see the picture from the other end. The truth is that, look, if you, let's say, even if you take Muslim areas, let's say us, wherever we live, in the West, wherever that is, whether it's the UK or America or, I don't know, wherever in Europe. So let's take the UK as an example, a good example. Let's say we've got Birmingham. All right, represent. All right. But let's say you've got now Birmingham, the heart of England, people. The heart of England. Right, so now you go to the heart of Birmingham, Alum Rock. And the heart is clearly under cardiac arrest. It's got so much cholesterol in there. It's like, Alum Rock is like Pakistan capital in, I mean, Birmingham might as well be part of Pakistan, but the point is, Alum Rock is the dense. It's all those clotted up arteries. Now, let's just say you take a Muslim areas. Now, imagine, let's take people who are quite, this is a mental experiment, a thought experiment. Let's say some Hindus started to move in. Right. Now, Hindus, to be fair, let's say Indian Hindus, they, same kind of, you know, very similar features to us as Pakistanis, let's say. Very similar culture. We all eat roti. We all eat biryani. We all, you know, this is same culture, same kind of language. So there isn't even those differences. Now imagine these Hindus started to move in and they were living, let's say, in a certain part of Alum Rock. And they started to live more and more densely. But then they all started to walk around wearing the orange, saffron, you know, those kind of Swami outfits. And they all started to wear the bright red marks. And every time you saw a Hindu, he's wearing this bright red mark on his forehead. And he only comes across in the orange suits. And whenever you see them, he says, like they walk up and down Alum Rock Road, let's say, saying, Om, Om, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Let's say they're doing all these things. And they walk around with their agarbattis and they kind of like their incense sticks. But they're not harming anyone. They're not harming anyone. They're not kind of like doing, but they're doing this, let's say. I guarantee you, despite our such proximal similarities to Indians, to Hindu Indians, despite our ethnicities almost really just being very similar, despite our language similarities, our cultural similarities, Muslims would become incredibly intolerant towards this. I guarantee you that if they started to do it, if one guy did it, it wouldn't be a problem. If 2-3 people did it. But imagine they started to do this in the hundreds. That every time you see them, they just, Om Namah Shikar, whatever it is, and they're just moving incense sticks, and they're just walking around, and they're wearing those things, and they're saying Jai Shiva, and all of this. I guarantee you it would start to frustrate a lot of Muslims. Because Muslims will say, look, we haven't got a problem with you practicing Hinduism, but why does it have to be so in our face all the time? Now, this is the same kind of problem that we're doing with non-Muslims in this country. You see, now, we are doing the same thing. Like, we are just so being in people's face. You know, we're like, it's not enough to say Allahu Akbar. We must have Allahu Akbar plastered on the bus boards. And we must have Allah written everywhere. And we must have... And yet we're not even culturally the same as these people. We don't have the same cultural background. We're ethnically different. We've got a different skin tone. I mean, we are doing that exact same thing, but to a greater extent. So you have to understand why it does annoy people. Naturally, just run that thought experiment and be honest with yourself. Would you tolerate a large Hindu kind of contingent like that moves in, that kind of becomes so in your face Hindutva Hindu, like very clear, hardline Hindu, always dressing, always in your face, drawing the Hindu symbols everywhere, sticking them up? Would you accept that within your own areas? And the truth is, you wouldn't. I think the majority of Muslims wouldn't in this country. And I'm speaking about in this country. If it was in a Muslim country, they'd probably lynch them. I mean, that shows the tolerance levels. So we have to understand that, yes, people are reacting in Europe as well. We are triggering the far right and these things. But not entirely, but partially, we are to blame as well. Partially. Right, so what is going on, people? We've got Robin Singh saying, Paji, tusi great ho. Tusi bhi great ho, janab. Tusi bhi great ho. Right, so we've got Qasim Abu Layth Sahib. Alright, you're doing it. What's the Islamic position on karma? Hasib Qamar has asked a question. Karma, people, is when we say, like, because I've done something bad will happen to me. In Islam, there is no karma. Now, ironically, although in our books we do state that, but in practice, most Muslims seem to believe in karma. Which is really weird, because karma is actually a Hindu and a Buddhist kind of belief structure in which your deeds come back and haunt you. Now, to some extent, this can have a reality on the ground regardless of religion. Like, your deeds coming back to haunt you could mean that, look, like, I commit a crime and now I get caught out for the crime. So my deeds have come back to haunt me. And by that standard, obviously nobody would disagree with that, because that's just the laws of the world. That's just the way of the world, the laws of nature. It could be that I, for example, you know, I robbed somebody today and then they find out and then they retaliate. And so I don't mean karma at that level, because at that level, that's just following the natural laws. But I mean karma in the sense of people will feel that, like let's say I've been a bad person in some, but I will get punished in an unrelated way. Nothing to do with the actual incident. They're not talking about so I don't know, like, let's say I cheat somebody out of something. Now somebody will cheat me out of something. This is how many Muslims, I don't know about most, but many Muslims seem to believe this, like what goes round comes round. in some ways it helps them not do bad things, so I guess it has a good side to it. I mean, Islamically, it's not upheld. There's no beliefs. In fact, Sheikh Nafrawi in his Fawaqi al-Dawani writes explicitly at the beginning that we as Ahl Sunnah, he says, we do not believe that our sins decrease our rizq. He says we do not believe that. So our rizq, our provision, what God has written for us, which we don't know, by the way, what that is, but whatever God has written for us does not go down by sins. So because I've committed sins, therefore I'm poor. That's not the authentic Islamic belief structure. That Allah takes away our rizq because of... Now there is something, but there is some Islamic talk about blessings. Now people then can easily mix these up. They can say, well, surely, you don't have blessings if you commit a life of crime. And that is true. So people who are living a wretched lifestyle in terms of, let's say, dealing drugs, they're living off crime, that surely the barakah of the livelihood of these people will be taken away. Now, what is barakah? You see, it's more from an Islamic perspective, it's a subjective experience, something that you will experience in something, that you are never quite content. It's a contentment that is removed, that we believe that Allah doesn't bless those people, that they don't have. And remember, the thing is, in Islam, there is this concept that the dua, the prayer of the madhloom, the oppressed, is heard by God. If you are oppressing people, they are crying out against you. Now, we do believe that Allah, if He chooses and He answers those prayers, that you may see some consequences to that. Now, how will that consequence be? We don't know, because we don't know the future, you see. So I'm not saying, I want to be clear here, because this karma question can be quite confusing. I'm not saying that you can't be tested in this world through different things. You can be, and Allah may be testing you because you've been oppressing people. That may be the case. It doesn't have to be the case, but it may be. I mean, these are things we don't know because we don't know how the mind of God is working. I also do believe that if you do good things like giving charity, that there are more blessings in your rizq, in your provision. This sounds counterintuitive. You think, well, what on earth are you on about? If I give in charity, how does my wealth and things get blessed? But it actually seems to work, as bizarre as it sounds. I mean, if you try it, give out in humanitarian causes, and you'll see wealth come in sometimes from places that you don't expect. Now, one may say, well, that was going to happen anyway. Okay, maybe. Well, we don't know until it happens. The Islamic argument would be that was from Allah, that was a blessing. So for example, in the Islamic sources, taking care of your parents increases in your rizq, in the Islamic understanding. So these kind of things. But when I said karma, I meant in general karma. Like let's say I don't pray, and now because I don't pray, that's a sin. Now because I've lived in sin, this is according to some understanding, therefore Allah is reducing my rizq and He's punishing me like that. This kind of thing doesn't happen according to Islamic sources like that. That's what I was trying to explain. I hope that makes sense. Right, so people, what else? I will be taking a look at later on, by the way. There's this issue of Nikah with non-Muslims. Alright. People, if you're thinking of opening up that gene pool and diluting the gene pool even further, these intermarriages as opposed to the intra, keeping it in the family. Or is that just Pakistani? I don't know. Is qisas permitted for non-Muslims? I read that Hanafis extend it to non-Muslims. Other schools do not. Right now, do you need a separate nikah if you have a legal registration, you have witnesses, you gave a gift, make vows? What's the difference? Right, okay, that's a good question. Generally, within Islam, there are certain social structures. I accept what you're saying, that first of all, there are different social structures. So you have a civil marriage and you have a nikah. They are not actually the same thing in Islam, just as a civil divorce is not a talaq and a talaq is not a civil divorce. And a nikah is not a civil registration is not a nikah. So these things are separate institutions, if you like. Now, one could say, well, in theory, are they not covering a similar thing? They kind of are, in theory. There is an overlap, a huge overlap. They kind of are. They're expressing a sense of union, for example. But they're actually clearly stating that we don't have... You see, like a civil registration will make it very clear that we are nothing to do with religion. This is not... We are not endorsing any religious affirmation. They make that very clear, that this is just simply a legal act of registration. That's all it is. So it's difficult categorizing that as a nikah, although I would argue, and I will discuss this more later on, that, can a nikah, in broad terms, I would say that could qualify as a nikah if you accept everything to qualify as a nikah. So, for example, because I've said, what is the difference in this day and age in boyfriends, girlfriends, in it not being a nikah? How is that different from the urfi nikah, not the rasmi nikah? Because the urfi nikah was simply an acceptance with exclusivity. Now, how is that different with boyfriend, girlfriends today that are exclusive, that cohabit, that live together? How is that not different? How is that any different from just two people sitting in a room having two witnesses and saying, qabiltu, saying this? How is that any different really in the real world? I think it isn't. And people... So if we're to accept the whole broad spectrum, then I think this too will fall under it. But if we're only to accept this and reject the broad spectrum, then I think you can't accept this either, that there must be consistency. But by default, I'm just speaking about how you see, because Muslims are a social community. They're not just, it's not just me or you or whoever the questioner is. It's not just... So Muslims, generally speaking, do not acknowledge the legal registration to be a religious ceremony. Neither do the registration people claim this to have any relevance with any religion. So because of that, because neither are embracing the other, like even the civil people will be very clear that this has nothing to do with religion, and do not mistake it to be religious. They will be very clear if you ask them. So I would say that so as things stand, you should get a nikah, definitely. And the civil registration is up to you, if you want to get the civil registration or not. So that's my advice. See, the problem is the civil registration is, if personally, I'm not really for civil registrations, because this is my opinion, and you can disagree with it, because I don't believe that that a state should tell you when you can end your relationship. I'm against like authoritarian perspectives. Like I don't accept people to be very controlling of people's private lives. I feel that we have a sacred, sacrosanct as well, right to have privacy, to have our private lives, that these things should not be administered by the state. That's that's the kind of human being I am. That said, I understand when people say, well, if women don't do a nikah or men, then they don't have rights. I think this word is misleading because I think what it means is really they can't claim half the property of the other person. You see, so what I advise people, this is my advice, they do not need to follow it. I say that, look, people should earn for themselves and prepare for themselves. And I think in that sense, if a woman is going to marry somebody and if they're not going to have a civil registration, then she should just be very clear that if she's after, like if she wants security in terms of the property, then she should just have her name on the property as well. Or she should work and put money aside and get her own property as well and put it on rent. And I think that, remember, everybody's an independent person in this society, men and women. They're all independent. And I think, so if this is my understanding, that let's say because what you get is people will go through a divorce, and I speak to so many people going through divorces. They have to, when the relationship ends, then they have to go for another year and a half to court. That is the most bizarre thing I can ever... Why would you want to do that? God. So that's my take on things. I'm not an advocate of civil registration. I think people should just have relationships, but they should respect the rights. They should respect... both couple have the... if they want to work, they can work. They have the right to work. They should be working, and both should be looking for themselves in terms of investments as well. That's what I think. But my views, these are my views, yeah. Not everybody obviously follows my views. In the words of Ghalib, "Bak raha hoon junoon mein kya kya kuch." What utter nonsense do I blabber away in this insanity of mine. Kuch na samjhe khuda kare koi. That, God willing, nobody will understand anything. That's just my... it's not about the... Somebody said patriarchy. I'm not about the patriarchy. Whoa, what just happened there, people? What just happened there? Right, that got... Whilst I have to share that again. Ya salam. Right, so people, I've got no idea what just happened there. I'm trying to share that again. Let's see, that just suddenly clunked out on me. Just share that. Well, anyway, let's go to the next question, people. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum marratan ukhra. People, otra vez. We are back. Right. Don't know what that was. I think it was just... Maybe the internet connection went... I don't know. But it just completely shut down. It's conspiracy, people. It was a conspiracy. So what are some questions? So... What is going on, people? What is going on? ¿Qué onda? Alright, clear. Ahlan wa sahlan, shukran, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. This is part 2, people. Going down, part 2. Some people get really agitated by me doing this. So I have to do it more and more often. Feed the aggro, people. Right, so... Right, so pay your bills. Claire said pay your bills. Yeah, but it's not as fun when you don't pay your bills. You got to live on the edge. Right, can you say that? Alright, so let's take some questions, people. Can you say that in reality Ijma is just an argumentum ad populum? Are there scholars who critiqued Ijma? Are there scholars who critiqued Ijma? Apun, am I not a scholar? Yeah. Ya salam. Do I have to look around for scholars who have critiqued Ijma? Arey, I is sitting right here. I have criticized Ijma. You know, this one time I was in Al-Azhar, you know, Jami Al-Azhar, yeah? So, in Cairo. So we were having this lesson with the sheikh. And the sheikh was speaking about some topic. And he mentioned some hadith. I'm trying to recall now what the hadith was. But it was a really popular one. A really popular hadith. And everybody really knew this hadith. So, and he said, نعم لكن هذا الحديث يعني في الحقيقة ضعيف يعني قد ضعفه العلماء. So he said this hadith in reality is just weak, like ulama have declared it weak. And he carried on talking. So I was like, wow, okay. I thought that was like an, you know, like a widely, generally, like unquestionably popular and accepted hadith. So I was intrigued. So at the end of the discussion, I said, Sheikh, ذكرت هذا الحديث فيعني من هم العلماء الذين يعني نقدوا هذا الحديث وضعفوه. So I said, like, you know, you mentioned this hadith. So who were the scholars that critiqued and weakened this hadith? So he goes, أنا. He goes, ضعفته أنا. He said, I declared it weak. I am the ulama. I thought, vah, ishtail. That's what he called ishtail. So, so when you're saying, who are the ulama that critiqued Ijma? I am the ulama that critiqued Ijma. Now, a lot of people have critiqued Ijma. Ijma was a joke. Ijma is the myth of the fuqaha. And I've got a segment on Ijma, by the way. Many people critiqued it from the Salaf. People think Imam Shafi'i was actually supporting Ijma. I read his argument differently. I read that Imam Shafi'i in his Risala is critiquing the Ijma. So it's interesting how you read what Imam Shafi'i is saying. Because he's saying, how do we... Ijma means consensus. Now, there is no, first of all, consensus on what the definition of consensus is. There is no ijma on ijma. So the argument's ridiculous from the word go. So, and Imam Shafi'i is kind of throwing a few spanners in. He's showing the argument, but then he throws a few spanners in at the end and just leaves it. He's like... And then it's like that Saw music comes on. You know, like in Saw at the end when everything's unraveling. And Imam Shafi'i just walks away. You know, like as that door shuts and the guy's like, oh, everything, it makes sense now. A jigsaw is unraveled and Imam Shafi'i just walks away. And that's the... So he throws a few spanners in by trying to say that, well, it's a consensus of the scholars. How do we even determine who the scholars are? And then he says, because there's no scholar except somebody considers him a jahil. So he says, we have no kind of unanimous understanding on who the scholars are. So how, like, this is a spanner, a major spanner in the works. Then he throws another spanner by saying, well, where do these scholars exist? Like, do they exist in the desert? Do they has somebody actually gone out and counted all the scholars in the world? How could you even do that? So these are some major spanners that Imam Shafi'i throws in this whole equation. And then Imam Ahmad just kills it. He just goes, I got this, don't worry. He says, Man idda'a al-ijma' fahuwa kadhib. Whosoever claims ijma' is a liar. Liar. This one liar, you know, this one kadhab. So, and the irony is, you can't get any more explicit than that. And then they're just like, no, but really. He's like, kadhib. They're like, no, but really, Sheikh, really. And everybody just ignores what he said. So it's like, wow. Yeah. And then other people, Ibn Hazm obviously rips the whole argument of Ijma to pieces. Shawkani problematizes the whole thing. I mean, many people have spoken up. Alright people, this is a conspiracy now. Now I'm on conspiracy mode. I've had enough. This no es posible. This cannot be happening. This, people, this is a conspiracy. This is now I'm a conspiracy theorist. What is going on? God damn it. What is going on? How can this happen to me 3 times? Surely, is this to fulfill the sunnah? What is going on, people? What is going on? Should I just, as Claire had said earlier on, just start paying my bills? Yeah. Ya salam. Mark Zuckerberg. What is ما هذا يا أخي? Ya akhi, embrace Islam. This I've got no. This is taking the mick tonight. I don't know what it is, people. I think, you know what? Let's get on with some of the major stuff, because this seems to repeatedly disconnect. Maybe it's Facebook. Maybe it's Facebook. Maybe it's some viruses. Wait a minute. What websites have I been going on? Huh? I thought you can't. So, well, here we are, people. We're back. Right now, is there such thing as religious narcissism? Wah! What a question! What a beautiful question. The beautiful brother has asked a beautiful question. That's the time when you're that's cognitive dissonance. You know, in the Mulvi Sahib, he's saying, the beautiful brother. And you're thinking, uh-oh. Am I gonna get done in some other way? Am I gonna receive more than just simply an answer? The beautiful brother, you know, the beautiful brother has asked a beautiful question. You're thinking, uh-oh, Qari Sahib, please, Qari Sahib, no, not those madrasa days again. Right, so religious narcissism, it depends what that means, really. Religious narcissism as in just the gratification of its own ego, is that what you mean by it? Or I don't know what exactly, because I can think of many kind of permutations to what that could mean. Is it compulsory to place something before us before we what the hell? Place something in front of us whilst praying? Is it okay to, Maz, place something in front of us whilst we're praying? Yeah, how do these people manage to stay focused? You don't have, you can pray anywhere you are, however you want. You do not need to place something in front of you. People place something like they'll stand something erect, and no pun intended, in front of them, and they'll just like be, I know, this is my sutra, right? I'm gonna pray towards this. Not sutra here doesn't mean, it's not the same word as like Kama Sutra. That's a different word altogether. Just for those of you who, the easily distracted, I know that from my audience there's the easily distracted. This is the Arabic word. That's the Sanskrit word. Okay, so this one different, this one different. So people feel that you need to put something up and you need to pray to it. That is not true at all, people. Just pray. Just relax. Pray. Wherever you are, just pray. And as to walking in front of that person, well, I mean, I don't know why you have to walk in directly in front of the person, but if you leave enough space for the person to be able to do sujood, then that's fine. You can walk from in front. It doesn't mean because I'm praying now from here to right around the globe 360 that nobody can walk in front of me. That would be crazy. So it's like, just because I'm praying, I mean, what do I think how much space do I think I'm going to need? Talk about religious narcissism. That's like, well, what do you think? Like, you're like 20 foot tall, that you need all that space up to, just